Hi again, everyone. My name's Zach, and I'm the New York City Coding and Tech Tutor. And this is a video series on how to make iOS, Android, and web apps using JavaScript, specifically using the React and Ionic JavaScript front-end libraries. In this video, I'm going to show you how to actually start coding your homepage. All right, so here's what we have so far. We have just a home page that says test. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make this home page say it's not really gonna be like a home page, like a normal home page. It's gonna have a sign up and a sign in form right on the home page. And then when you sign up or when you sign in, it's going to go to the only other page that's in the app, which is a to-do list creator. So here I am on my home page, and I've got this word test. I'm going to delete the word test. And by the way, it should be set up where I don't have to like save it or anything. I just click right over here, and it updates for me without me having to refresh or do a file save over here or a command S over here. We're going to start making a form. So let's see how this goes. The top of the form is going to say sign up. I put it in the strong HTML tag so that it comes out bold. And then I'm going to do a line break, and first name. All right, this is just really simple HTML. You should recognize this already if you've done any HTML before. All right, I'm going to have an input. The input type is text, and it has an ID of first name. Okay, there are no stylings yet on this input, but that's okay for right now. I'm going to add 3 more inputs. I'm going to add them all at once here. I didn't add the last name, but there we go. All right. So first name, last name, email, password. It's all the same. They all have the type text, and they all have different IDs. This one has type password, so that when I type it, it blocks it. There's going to be a button at the bottom of this. All right, no stylings on the button. It's all okay. We're going to talk about stylings in a second. There is then going to be some more line breaks, and then a sign-in form with another button. So this says sign in, more line breaks, email, place to put your email, password. There we go. I am using the normal HTML input tags. Ionic comes with its own input components. So if I Google Ionic input and I go here, you'll see that there are ways to do it the Ionic way, and there are definite advantages to doing it the Ionic way. You can easily add like swipe features, drop downs onto your inputs. You can have labels like there. You can have like a floating label that pops up like that. You can have something like this. That's like easy to implement. All right. There are definitely advantages to using the Ion input. I try to use Ionic stuff only when I feel like I really, really need it. So right now I'm going to not use Ionic stuff because Ionic stuff is in some ways it makes things easier, in other ways it makes it harder. Like let's say for instance if I wanted to use this Ion input, let's see what would happen. First of all, it would say I need to add it to the top here. So I would need to add Ion input up here. Let's see what that would do to my app. All right. So, already it's asking that I start giving it more information. Oftentimes you have to wrap it in an Ion item. Okay. And you can keep playing with it if you want. But I'm not going to be doing that right now. I just wanted to show you that that is an option. Okay, so to start styling these buttons, I need to go to the CSS that I'm putting my custom stylings in. It's already imported here from my home component, my home page. So I'm going to go to my this all.css. I want to start styling the inputs first. And let's try with just these two inputs first. Let's try border radius 6 pixels and border width thin. And you can see, okay, that made a nice rounded edge. So I like that. Thin, and it made a thin border. Okay, let's see if I type here. Okay, the words are a little too close. So let's add these two styles for the input tag, some padding, and just to make sure that the background color stays white, because on some browsers I was noticing that the background color was changing. Okay, there. Ooh, okay, so now that looks kind of nice. All right, but now let's say I want to add some margin on the top and bottom because I find this input a little too close to like this label up here. So let's see if I do that, what happens. I'm gonna go here to margin top. Now in normal circumstances, that would put margin between where I'm typing my input and the label. But if I go in here and check it, ooh, it didn't work. All right, why didn't it work? It didn't work because Ionic wants you or is encouraging you to use their inputs at this point. And they've already sort of decided what the margin should be between something above a label or something above an input and the actual input itself. Now, how do you get around that? The way you get around that is you add this. You add in exclamation point important. And if I do that, you can see there, now it's actually putting that margin in. So anytime you're using a CSS style that you know should work, and that is always, that always works in every other situation, in order to make Ionic not override it, I need to put that important thing. So same for margin bottom. Margin bottom there. Now I've got margins on the bottom and the top of the input, and that looks good to me. All right, I don't really like how these buttons look, so I'm going to do some styles for all buttons. And let's start with just font size and padding. Okay, made it bigger, put some padding around it, good. Let's do background color, dark gray, cool, dark gray background color. Let's do regular color, white, awesome. And then I want to do rounded edges. So let me see if I try to do rounded edges, what happens? Okay, it didn't work. Once again, this is about Ionic being a bully, so to speak. If I go to Ionic or Ion button, and I look at like the button that Ionic would prefer me to use, I can see that that the Ionic buttons already have curved edges, right? They have sort of decided what you should do in terms of your curved edges. And if you want to see kind of a list of everything that they've decided on in terms of styles, you can go down and you can see here border radius. If it's got if any style that has a dash in front of it means that Ionic has sort of predetermined what the border radius is going to be. So if I take important and put it after border radius, and look here, there. Now I've sort of overridden what Ionic wants me to do. If I were using Ion button here, if I were using Ion button and I wanted to like change the way it looked, there are some, first you've got some like built-in props or properties that will basically change the style for you, like sort of as a shortcut. So like here, this one says under, I looked up Ion button in the documentation, it says color there. If I were to go to my Ion button and do color equals, I don't think I can just do any color. I have to do one of these colors. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way is just to not use these built-in things, but to go down here to the custom properties, and basically you could give this a class that says like class name equals sign up button, and then you could go to your CSS file. You would need to do the dash dash background. You would need to do it like this, dash dash background, and then you could probably do your own color. See if that works. Oh, there it worked. Yeah. So that's how you use, if you want to use Ionic's custom components, that's how you control the styling for them. For this tutorial, I'm going to stick with the override by just typing it in normal like this, but putting important in front of it like this. All right, so that is pretty much the home page. It's built. Now we just need to actually make sure it works, because right now it's just a form that doesn't actually do anything when I push these buttons. I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you that we are syncing our work with our repository. So you can see here the GitHub has noticed that we've made these changes. Right, the red is stuff that's been removed, the green is stuff that's been added. GitHub requires you to type a name for your changes. I usually don't have a I usually am not very good at like summarizing my changes, so I'll usually just write like update here for all my changes. I'll commit it. Then I'll finish the commit by pushing origin. And awesome. We've made changes. We're making progress. Our app's looking good. And we're backing up our work. Next up is to kind of take a break from the web app version, which is what this is. Take a break from the web app version of our app and see how it looks in Android Studio. So see how it looks on an Android simulator. So we'll learn how to do that in the next video. Okay, I after finishing this the most recent video, this video, I realized that I need to address one issue, at least a little bit, and that is that when I view my web app in like a normal web view and like a full screen view, it is not really stylized to look like a web page. And there are different ways to deal with that. I'm not going to go into the details because I'm trying to make this tutorial only stick to sort of the most basic things that you need. But you know, at some point, you probably would want your web app to look better on a computer screen. So there are different ways of dealing with that. One way to deal with that is to use Ion's grid system. And if you just Google Ion or Ionic Grid, you'll find this web page, and it'll explain how to use the grid. And the grid is made of, so you would put it inside of Ion content here. Any component where there is an Ion content, you would also have an Ion grid, and then you would have rows and columns. And you can specify the size of the rows and columns based on what size screen you're looking at it. So if you're looking at it on a small window, you can see this is actually designed to change based on smaller windows. You could have you could load up something just based on a small size window, or load up something that's based on a medium size window, or load something that's only based on a large size window, which is like what this is right now. You really have to play around with it a lot in order to really get a handle of the grid, which is one reason I'm not going to include it much about it in this tutorial other than just mentioning it right here. But it's definitely useful in terms of making your app responsive. This is what it's called, a responsive app, when it changes based on size like this. Another thing I want to call your attention to is platform function. So you can check to see if your app can check to see what it's running on. And this is platform will return true or false based on whatever string you put in it. So if you can put like is platform iOS. If it returns true, then you can write code that is only for the iOS platform. Same for Android, same for capacitor. Capacitor would not be running in a web app. So if you wanted to like have something that only ran on devices, you could check for if it's running on capacitor. If you're building for desktop, you can check to see if it's running on desktop. If you want to get really specific, you can check to see if it's running on an iPad, although that's usually not necessary, because if you use is platform along with grid, you can take into account both what platform it's running on and the width of the screen on that platform. So these two things work pretty well together, the grid and the platform check. And you just got to play around with it. I usually put the is platform check in my component did mount, usually in the home, in the root app component. You can put it in here somewhere, check and see what you're running on, and then change the state based on that, and then change like what's happening in all your components based on whatever platform you're running on. The thing that I almost always have to use is platform for is how much margin do I want on the top of the screen when I'm looking at an iOS app versus how much margin I want on the top of the screen when I'm looking at an Android app. The tops of an iPhone screen look different than the top of a Android screen. So you sort of oftentimes need to adjust the margin up there based on whatever platform, whatever device you're looking at, or whatever device the user is looking at. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. And now on to the next video. Thanks.